Hi, my darlings. I'm Sophie Darling, and welcome back to the channel. If you love anime, heartfelt reactions, and deep dives into symbolism and themes, then you are in the right place. Before we jump into today's reaction, don't forget to hit that like button to show some love, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a moment of fun. And if you want even more exclusive content like early access to my reactions, full length anime watch alongs, and an amazing community of fellow anime lovers, then please do check out my Patreon. You can find a link in the description box below. Your support truly means the world as it helps to keep these reactions coming, and I'd love to have you join our cozy little anime family. Today, we are reacting to episode 21 of Series 3 of Attack on Titan. We have 2 more episodes to go before Series 3 is done, and then we'll be moving on to Series 4. And I'm still in shock that we are kind of close to the end now. We're closer to the end than we are the beginning, and it's kind of making me really sad. I'm never going to be able to watch this show for the first time again. And yes, my first reactions are going to be on YouTube forever, which is great, but I'm never going to experience this story for the first time. And I don't know, I'm in my feels about it. I'm just a bit emotional because I've enjoyed every single moment. This is everything that I want in a story. Intrigue, mystery, action, thriller. There's a lot to discuss. There's so much happening with the characters. There's just so much depth to it that you can pull it apart layer by layer by layer. As much as I do love the action scenes in Attack on Titan, my favorite parts are still the dialogue, the interactions, and I know a lot of people said, oh, the beginning of Series 3 is really slow and boring. I loved it. I loved the beginning of Series 3 because there's just so much foreshadowing for what's to come. There's so much build up of the characters. We see Historia come into her own. We see her become strong. We see her attempt to break generational curses. We learn more about Eren and the pressure that Grisha has put on him to avenge his mother, which ties into the second arc of Series 3 when we get introduced to Grisha and his relationship with Dina and their son Zeke, and how Zeke also felt that same pressure, that same manipulation from Grisha to become something, to be a weapon for his cause, and how both sons are essentially corrupted by the father, just on different sides of the divide. That intrigues me the most right now. Why Zeke betrayed his parents. What was it that made Zeke decide, I don't agree with my father and mother, and I'm going to side with my grandparents and I'm going to turn them in for my family's protection? I know the show will give that to me, but I'm so intrigued by it, especially because we had that brief interaction between Zeke and Eren where Zeke essentially says to Eren, I see you've been manipulated too, which indicates that he does feel betrayed, he does feel used, he does feel as if Grisha only wanted him or only saw him as special because of his bloodline, because he was of the royal lineage, because he was also a subject of Ymir that could turn into a Titan. He wanted to use him in order to gain the ability of the founding Titan to turn on the Marleyan government. And in a similar parallel, we now have Grisha demanding that Eren take revenge for his mother's death. He is essentially forcing him into it. Eren never chose to become a pure Titan. He never chose to have those abilities thrust onto him. Grisha thrust it onto him with little choice. You can see Eren resisting the injection. He's pulling away. It's a very visually striking image. He's crying, he's pulling away, he's recoiling from his father. In the end, he has no choice. He's overpowered by Grisha. And this is all for Grisha's mission. This is what Grisha has wanted all along. And if Zeke can't be the one to fulfill that goal, Eren will be. So both sons have been manipulated, they have been used. Zeke had his revenge essentially by turning his father in. Eren never got that opportunity to have a confrontation with Grisha because he ate his dad, so he really didn't know much. But I have a feeling that going into series 4 that we're going to start seeing how Eren and Zeke are almost the opposite sides of the same coin. They both are on opposing sides but have experienced the same desires for freedom. We know that Eren is driven not just by a need to avenge his mother, but to also express the pain and suffering that he has felt, not only because of the attacks on the walls, but also that feeling of being caged in, of not being free, of feeling as if his life is being controlled and dictated by an exterior force, which essentially it has been. And he wants to make those who have made him feel that way suffer in turn. Zeke wants to make those within the walls suffer, not sure why yet, but likewise, Eren wants to make the Malian government suffer. He doesn't know about them yet, but it's only a matter of time before Eren does know about them, and I think that's when we're going to see Eren pull away from his friends, pull away from his support network, and that's when he's going to start becoming darker, more ruthless, more brutal. Eren is capable of it. We've kind of seen glimpses of, I will kill them all. That language to me very much insinuates that it goes beyond Titans, because again, it'll be, I will kill all Titans, and then sometimes no Titans are mentioned. It's just, I will kill them all. Which leads me to believe that Eren is going to go on a rampage against the Malian government, and by extension, the Malian people, and commit atrocities against civilians, because he's not going to see them as any different to the Malian government themselves, in the same way that the Malian government didn't see innocent civilians within the walls as any different to who their true target was, which was the Race family, aka the Fritz family. I think Eren is going to take revenge to the next level, but I think him and Zeke are going to have very similar driving forces, just on opposing sides, and I think that's going to be really fascinating to watch. And I'm really excited to see how that plays out, that dynamic between them. I hope they do have more interaction in Series 4. I think it's going to be a fascinating one because they are brothers on opposing sides. They have different mothers, but their father has essentially forced them to become weapons for his own inevitable goals. One of these weapons turned against him, and the other is still a weapon that we have yet to see be used on the Malian government, but I think will be used on the Malian government. And another thing I really wanted to clarify, because my episode 14 received a little bit of controversy, and I think episode 15 will most likely receive the same. But what I want to clarify is why I don't see Reiner and Bertholdt as the enemy. I've had a few not so pleasant comments calling me delusional, which is fine. You can call me that. But I think I need to kind of offer my perspective, especially as someone who has grown up in a country torn apart by civil war, who still lives in the aftermath of divided communities where peace is incredibly fragile and could fall apart at any moment. We still have issues of violence and transgenerational trauma. And I think what people sometimes fail to realize is that it's not victim or perpetrator. You can be a victim and a perpetrator. I think people forget that. It's so easy to forget it, but that offers some new context into looking at Bertholdt, Reiner, and Annie, especially as we are dealing with children that are growing up with the legacy of a history thrust upon them. But that burden, that weight of history is such a burden on the next generation that they feel that they have to do something about it. And that's what transgenerational trauma is. You have traumatized grandparents, parents, and they pass it down to their children, and their children replicate the same cycles. Cycles aren't being broken. I am sure that we are going to see more about Reiner and Annie and Bertholdt's upbringing in Series 4. But from what we've learned so far from Grisha is only subjects of Ymir can be turned into Titans, meaning Annie, Reiner, and Bertholdt have to also be of the same bloodline as those within the walls, because they have the ability to turn. Which also means, if that is the case, they likely grew up in internment camps. They likely also felt the weight and burden of history thrust upon them by their families, by their grandparents, and the pressure of giving their families a better life. Because we know that what's being offered is Malian citizenship for those children who sign up to the program, who become Titans. So you have to kind of look at it from the perspective that they are doing all of this to give their families a better life. I think when people say that Bertholdt deserves to die because he didn't speak with Armin and didn't agree to diplomacy, when you gain further context, I think it becomes very clear that he was literally between a rock and a hard place. If he turns on the Beast Titan, he's a traitor. And by extension, his family is going to pay the price. Arguably, a fate worse than death, which is being trapped in the body of a pure Titan. We don't know much about Bertholdt's background, but that's kind of the insinuation that we've got from Grisha's history, is that everything they are doing is for their family's benefit. It's to give their family an opportunity and a chance to survive in a very harsh environment that sees them as evil, sees them as vermin, sees them as monsters. They want their family to have a chance to be something more than just prisoners. They want their family to be free in the same way that Eren desires to be free and desires for the people within the walls to be free. It's the same concept, just on different sides, okay? I think people also fail to recognize that they are traumatized themselves. When they signed up to this program, they were, 11, 12, and 13? You cannot expect an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 13-year-old to understand the magnitude of what they are being asked to do. That's not me saying that I agree with their actions. That's not me sanctioning what they did. That's me looking at it from the fact that they are children and not adults. They have had to live amongst these people. They've had to understand the consequences of their actions, which has led to the psychological split that we see Reiner undergo. But we also see aspects of trauma with Bertholdt and Annie. They withdraw. They're less involved, less engaged with people. They keep to themselves. And I know people may argue that that is them trying to keep their heads down to complete the mission. And it very well could be an aspect of that, but withdrawal is also a symptom of trauma. We also know that Bertholdt feels that same level of conflict as Reiner does, because he also in season 2 said, I don't want to do this. They've been coerced into this, they've been manipulated into this. And yes, in episode 15, he says, I have decided it. He makes that choice. He decides that he's not going to bulk, he's going to complete the mission, but that's with the desire to go home. You can still see that there's an element of care there. He says to them that you are still my treasured comrades, but you will die. He's made that decision because he really has no choice. It's either do or die. Be a traitor and possibly die, and damn your family to die, or potentially succeed, kill the people you care about, but you get to go home and see your family. Again, they are children, and I think we need to stop enforcing this perspective of, well, they should know better. They're children. They're literal children. I made dumbass decisions at that age, let alone being thrust into the middle of a war that I don't fully understand, but I am being told that I have to participate in. And yet, you're expecting me to have rational thought processes about it? So if we're condemning these children being manipulated by the upper echelons of the Marleyan government, are we then condemning actual child soldiers throughout history? Are you saying that people who have been forced into participating in a war, who have then had to go on and shed blood because they really have had no choice but to do so, that they're somehow not worthy of empathy and understanding as to why they have been forced and coerced into this position? Again, not sanctioning their actions. You can condemn the action without condemning the person. I condemn wholeheartedly the action, but I can empathize with the difficult position that these characters have been thrust into, the trauma that they've had to undergo prior to becoming soldiers, but also not understanding the magnitude of what they're being asked to do. And again, the psychological strain that that put on Reiner is the biggest indication that they don't fully understand why they've been asked to do this, because everything they've been told, everything they've been taught is a lie. They have been coerced, they have been manipulated, they are victims of indoctrination, and they are victims of transgenerational trauma. Again, condemn the action, don't condemn the person. They are not evil. They're not evil. I don't understand why people argue that they're evil. What they did was horrible, absolutely horrible. But are we going to then condemn Erwin and the amount of people that he sacrificed to learn the truth about the basement? Are we going to condemn the government and how they force people onto essentially a suicide mission, knowing that they were inequipped and unable to do so. If you are the same people that are arguing that that is just, but what Reiner, Annie, and Berthold did is not just, then you're missing the point. We're not supposed to agree with either side. We're supposed to find fault in this whole system. In all honesty, it is just a great example of an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. We're not supposed to root for anybody in this. We're not supposed to be choosing sides. We're supposed to be looking at this going, holy crap, this is horrible that these children are being forced into fighting a war on both sides without fully understanding why, but also at the same time, we're not old enough to bear the sin of what their ancestors have done. We should be blaming the elite. We should be blaming the government. We shouldn't be blaming the children. So my first controversy, I think, with the Attack on Titan community was seeing people kind of give me a bit of backlash for actually finding sympathy with Reiner, Berthold, and Annie. And I was quite shocked by that because I would have thought that that was a common perspective, but apparently not. No child should be forced into that position, and no child should feel that they have no other option but to commit murder and atrocities in the name of a government who is seeking revenge for the past. We really should be looking deeper into this than just going, okay, well, they're evil and they're good, so fuck them. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of sad that people can't find empathy with them. And I don't think it should come as a shock to people because I've been empathizing with Reiner, Annie, and Bertolt since season 2. I think even from season 1, I felt that there was more to why Annie was doing this, especially the hated from birth, which we now know isn't to do with her being from another race, but because of her bloodline, because of her ability to shift, she's been hated by the Malian government because of the line that she descends from. That's not her fault. But yet she's been raised to not only hate herself, but to internalize that hatred for other people within her race that live within the walls. That's a hard message to unwire, which is again why we see Reiner struggle so much psychologically, because everything he has been taught turns out to be a lie. And Bertold, I don't think Bertold deserved to die just because he didn't choose diplomacy. If anything, I think the reason he didn't choose diplomacy was because he felt as if he had no other option but to side with the Malian government. Because if he didn't, he still ran the risk of his family paying the price for his choice. And I don't think he wanted his family to suffer. I think he was quite happy to die then and there. If that's what it meant, he would die having sided with the Malian government, and therefore his family would have been safe. I think he made the choice not so much for himself, but for his family. And again, a child caught between a rock and a hard place. You're asking a 16-year-old boy to act diplomatically in a war that he still doesn't fully understand, and you're asking him to unlearn all this hatred that's been thrust upon him throughout his upbringing. Of course, he's not going to unlearn that overnight. And ideologically speaking, it's very difficult to unlearn that behavior. It is possible to do so, but it's extremely difficult. So I don't think we should be too harsh on Bertold's decision, but I also think it's meant to parallel Marco. If you think about it, their deaths are very similar. Just before Marco died, Marco called out to his friends, or people that he saw as his friends. And just to paraphrase, because I can't remember the exact phrase line by line, but he said, "Why is the matter settled without us even talking about it?" They had already made the decision that Marco had to go without even speaking to Marco in the process. And likewise, we see that Bertold makes a decision and rejects the necessity of talks, which then leads to his own violent death. I think what that's meant to symbolize in both Marco and Bertold's death is that violence begets more violence, that peace cannot be achievable if diplomatic talks are left to the wayside, if they are not prioritized. And the fact that Marco died wanting to talk and Bertold died not wanting to talk is emphasizing that the only path forward is not violence, it's not revenge, it is sitting down, it is talking to one another and trying to understand and learn from each other's differences and to try and reconcile the grievances of the past. And the way they both call out to their friends in the end in the hope that it will save them just really emphasizes again the cruelty of war, the cruelty of violence, and just how unnecessary these deaths truly are in the long run. But it's not the children we should be blaming in this. It's not the children we should be condemning. It's not the children that we should be looking at as evil. It is the upper echelons of society who believe that using children as a weapon is justified and necessary. We should be looking at this war as something abhorrent and disgusting. We shouldn't be supporting it. We shouldn't be picking sides. We should be trying to find the ways in which society can move forward together, that both communities can come together and pave the way for peace. And unfortunately, diplomacy hasn't worked so far because neither sides have been open to diplomacy. I hope it's clear that I can't hate Annie, Reiner, and Bertholdt when I feel that they've been coerced and manipulated. Rather, I hate the Malian government for believing that it is necessary to corrupt children into fighting a battle for them while they do not reap the consequences or witness the horrors of what war truly is. But I also wanted to mention that the symbolism of Marco and Bertolf both reaching out to their friends in the end, only for it to get them nowhere, it doesn't save their lives, but emphasizes how sentimentality disappears in the face of war and how the ties between friends become no longer strong enough to bind us as they used to be. And it's just incredibly sad to witness, but at the same time, very powerful and moving in how it emphasizes the way that our perspective changes when war is thrust upon us. Those we valued as friends then become enemies, and the cycle of violence again repeats. I think that's something we also need to remember before we start taking sides, is that even those who were the most traumatized by Bertholdt's actions did not celebrate his death. That was not a win for them. They just witnessed somebody die who they still cared for, despite the fact that his actions led to the deaths of thousands of their people, including those they cared and loved for most. They did not find vindication in his death. In their eyes, it was just another tragedy upon tragedy of what they've already experienced. So if they're not able to find vindication and celebration in his death, why are we? This is meant to emphasize the horrors of war. This is meant to make us realize that violence only begets more violence, that we should be looking for peaceful opportunities of diplomacy, of finding ways to peace and of reconciling differences, rather than picking sides like it's a football game. It's not a football game. These are traumatized children, and I know it's fiction, but there are countries that have suffered the exact same situation that we are seeing depicted here, because again, all art is a mirror to society, hence why I think we need to look at it far deeper than just they're the enemy, therefore they deserve to die. And even Armin is not happy knowing that he's had to consume Berthold. It makes him physically sick because not only has he eaten somebody and taken that ability, that is somebody that he cared for, and that is somebody that even in the very end tried to reach out to. And yes, that could have been a step forward, but in doing so, he's also sacrificing the people he cares about. And it comes back to the original message of those who can't sacrifice anything can't change anything. Berthold wasn't willing to sacrifice his family for the sake of becoming a traitor. And therefore, he couldn't change anything, meaning he couldn't change his fate and he couldn't change the course of the war that is to come. But his death still has meaning because Armin has now received his memories and Armin is now the colossal Titan. So we are going to see how that plays out. Berthold will be like Marco. His death will still have meaning, will still have significance. But overall, we shouldn't be looking at this in such simplistic terms. We should be looking at this for the complexity and depth that it truly is. And without further ado, because this has been a long intro, we're going to get into episode 21, which I imagine is probably going to be paused just as much as episode 20 was. I think episode 20 by far is the most paused episode ever because there was just so much to discuss. And I feel like episode 21 and 22 may be the same. So let's get into it. Oh.
当局の兵士は皆果実の搾りかすのようになり海に投げ入れられた。 海とは何かを説明しなければならない。
Is it the
海
sea?
とは地表の7割を占める広大な塩水である。
Oh, like he's literally figuratively explaining what the sea is. Okay. I guess because he's expecting this book to be found by Eren, who has never seen the sea, and he probably presumes he has no clue what the sea is. Or, I mean, this book could have been realistically found by anyone, but I think he always intended it kind of for Eren to know the truth.
俺はエレン・クルーガー。今見せた通り、9つの巨人の一つを宿している。
Is this who Eren's
つまり
named
お
after,
前と
maybe?
同じユミルの民だ。
血液検査はどうした？
医者に協力者が一人いれば済む話だ。医者は諜報員に向いている。
Oh, wow. Okay.
実際お前はよくやってくれた。
So he's going to become a spy within the walls.
グ
Yeah.
ライスが嘆いた通りだったがな。
ライナーは王家の血を引くユミルの民は特別だ。巨人の進化を引き出す。
よせ、指が痛むだろ
う。お気遣いに感謝するよ。人の指をちょん切るのは気にならないらしいが。
I mean, he didn't really have a choice.
なあ、あの
He was
巨人でもっと
undercover.
早く暴れていれば、みんなも巨人にされずに済んだんじゃないのか。
His nose is bleeding. It's the same as what happens with Eren. Are we going to learn more about why this
だ
happens?
けじゃない。何千人ものユミルの民の指を切り落とし、ここで巨人にしてきた。すべてはエルディアのためだったと信じてる。
Why for the sake of Aldia?
グリシャ、お前に最後の任務を託す。他の誰かではなく、お前にだ。
He's going to consume him and take his abilities. He says, I don't have much time. I guess it's because he can't really go
初めてお前と会っ
back,
た。
can he? Because he's killed everyone. It's a bit sus.
お前はここまでマーレに強い憎しみを抱くことはなかっただろう。敵国、父親、自分。
He recognized it in Grisha. I keep saying Eren, but it's not. Kenneth said the same thing about Eren, about burning the world to ashes. So I guess thematically going to be similar to Eren, and his hatred for the Malian government is going to burn their world to ashes, but by extension, it's not going to make him feel any better. It's similar then to Grisha, where Grisha's hatred was recognized by the owl that he was a perfect candidate to go on and do what's about to happen, because his own hatred is so volatile, so vehement, that only he could steel himself for the task ahead. Because he went on to kill children, literal children, to gain the founding Titan ability. So I guess that's essentially the founding part, is that both of them are capable of committing atrocities without caring, because they have an ultimate goal in mind.
大陸にとどまった王家の残党は革命軍となり、父はその一員だった。しかし、何も成し遂げることなく、生きたまま
Oh my god.
幼かった俺は、その様子を戸棚の隙間から見ていることしかできなかった。それに、
Horrible.
マーレへの復讐とエルディアの復権を誓った。俺は未だあの時のまま、戸棚の隙間から世界を見ているだけなのかもしれない。
Whereas Grisha is hell-bent.
俺に残された任務とは何だ?
Infiltrate the walls. Take the founding Titan ability. Yeah. I knew he was going to inherit that Titan. They look too similar.
巨人化したお前に食われる。同じようにして始祖の巨人を持ち主から奪え。9つの巨人の力を継承した者は13年で死ぬ。俺が継承したのも13年前になる。
Eren's going to die.
黒はそれをユミルの呪いと言っていた。
僕はあと13年。エレンは
残り8年。
Oh my god.
違う。
But that's why Eren's going to become an anti-hero. He's going to make those years count.
9つの巨人を宿す者が力を継承させることなく死んだ場合、
Does the power die?
力はそれ以降に誕生するユミルの民の赤子に突如として継承される。
Okay.
あたかもユミルの民と 皆一様に見えない何かで繋がってい
Interesting.
ると考えざる。巨人を形成する血や骨、時には記憶や意志もその道を通り送られてくる。そしてその道は全て一つの座標で交わる。
Is that why he was able to receive memories back in series 1, episode 1? Was somebody transmitting thoughts and images of what's to come in his life down this path because they knew that he was destined to inherit this ability somehow?
すべてのユミルの民はその座標へとつながっている。
始祖ユミルの正体は一体何なんだ。
Are we actually going to learn?
マーレ政権下では悪魔の使い、エルディア帝国の時代では神がもたらした奇跡と唱えるものも。
Okay, not like the full story, I
この世に
guess.
真実などな
At
い。
least not
そ
yet.
れが現実だ。誰だって神でも悪魔にでもなれる。
It's just whoever
誰かが
wins
それを
history,
真
isn't it?
実だと言えばな。
It's written by the victors.
王家の血を引くものだからだ。敵の手に渡すべきではなかった。ジークがマーレに全てを話す前に。
But why is Zeke
それでも-
doing this?
それでも死ぬまで敵国のための子を生まされ続ける生涯の方が
That they
良
could
かっただろう
corrupt and turn.
俺は務めを果たした。お前もそうしろ。
正直に言って俺に務まるとは思え
It's so interesting how he
Why
goes from
not?
being I'm not special to I am
俺
special.
を見ろよ。
Is it because of this
生きたまま
pep
巨人に食わ
talk?
れて死んだ。
Good.
あん
He
た
deserves
俺に
it.
聞いたこれが面白いかって。面白くなかったよ。奴の断末魔は聞くに耐えないおぞましさだった。これが自由の代償だと分かっていたなら払わなかった。
エルディアに自由と尊厳を取り戻すために立て。
俺はもう
見られない、立てない、戦えない、弾もないか。マーレ
Oh
に
God.
虚勢されたか。
俺に憎しみを思い出させようとしても無駄だ。
He's so like Eren. That sense of weakness that essentially comes out. Not weakness in a bad way, but that sense of almost defeatism that needs to kind of be spurned on by like a more aggressive force, which is why Jean is so good at like riling Eren. He knows where to hit him. But this is just reminding me again of when we see Eren saying to Historia, like, you should kill me, you should eat me, I should never have been born. Again, that word, I should never have been born, I feel like is going to be significant at some point. Not quite sure why, but it's just an odd choice of saying, like, I should never have been born, because I guess maybe it could be in relation to the fact that he feels, due to Grisha's need for revenge and Grisha's desire to take the founding titan resulted in the death of Historia's family, that by extension, he should be the one to pay the price. He should be the one that should be sacrificed because he feels he needs to atone for his father's sin. But at the same time, Historia not taking the ability is her way of breaking generational cycles, generational trauma. It's just very interesting how similar father and son truly are, because this is reminding me of when Eren was very defeatist, very willing to give up and stop fighting and pursuing his inevitable goals. Of course, we know that Grisha does go on to pursue his inevitable goal, and we know that Eren went on to do the same. We don't see really any interaction between Grisha and Eren because Grisha ended up dying so early on to give Eren the abilities of the Founding Titan. It's nice to see that familial connection, to see the similarities between father and son that persist on, that same sort of stubbornness in a way of pursuing their inevitable goals, of continuing to fight, but they need to be motivated in order to do so. But it also makes sense as to why now Grisha gave the abilities to Eren, because Grisha would have only theoretically had about a year left. So if you're only alive for 13 years with the Founding Titan ability, then Grisha would be coming to the end of that. So he knew that he had to give it to Eren, or it would have been transferred to a baby who hadn't been born yet. So the only way to enact his inevitable goal was to give it to Eren. Eren was the only one in his mind that could pursue his desires to destroy the Malian government and to take back the continent.
あの日お前が妹を連れて壁の外に出ていなければ、いずれ父親の診療所を継ぎ、大人になった妹は結婚し、子供を産んでいたかもしれない。
He has
だがお前
fuel
は壁の
for
外に出
revenge.
た。俺はここで初めて同胞を蹴落とした日から、お前は妹を連れて壁の外に出た日から、その行いが報われる日まで進み続けるんだ。死んでも、死んだ後も。
We persist on.
これは、お前が始めた物語だろう。その巨人はいついかなる時代においても自由を求めて進み続けた。自由のために戦った。
Which is why that stands out to him so much.
名は
Attack Titan.
進撃の巨人。
So Eren has two Titans then. So essentially, he's the Attack Titan, but he's also the Founding Titan, or the Coordinate. So those within the walls have 3 Titans. If that's 3 including Armin, who's the Colossal, then we still have the Female Titan, the Armored Titan, the Beast Titan, Ymir's Titan. There's still 2 more that we don't know of. There's still 2 more that we have yet to see. So that's exciting. The true identity of intelligent titans stemming from a power exceeding human comprehension that sleeps in subjects of Ymir. That power is inherited along with memories through paths which transcend space and time. The coordinate where all paths intersect is the founding titan. So, if Eren goes on to become the founding titan, and the memories are transmitted to him, right? So those weird flashbacks that he was having in series 1, episode 1 that led to him crying, it was almost as if he was seeing the way that things are to go, as if he's almost being told what to expect and what awaits him. And I wonder if the flashbacks that he had are not all the flashbacks, that we have not seen everything that Eren has seen, that perhaps Eren has been shown everything that is to come in his lifespan, in his trajectory. So we know that the first episode is also called To You 2000 Years From Now. Could Ymir 2000 years ago have already known who was to inevitably inherit the ability, aka Eren, and she transmitted these memories to Eren that begins his story, that begins the trajectory of his arc? Because if they know where all paths intersect, then theoretically they would know inevitably where their ability is going to go. So perhaps she sought out Eren, sending these memories through the paths that transcend space and time to a point where Eren is old enough to have received them and is alive, but these were sent when Ymir was still the founding titan. Perhaps this could have happened before she died and she was able to see where her abilities were passed on throughout the timeline. Perhaps Eren is the last one to inherit the founding titan, and that's why he received these memories. Or perhaps it's because something in his timeline is deemed so important that she chose him for a reason. Maybe it would make sense then if that's the case.
何してるの？進撃の巨人ってやってたよね今。
いえ。
やってたよね。二人とも今の見たでしょ？君の巨人の名前でしょ？なんで誰もいないのに一人で喋っていたの？
もういいだろハンジ。こいつは15だぞ。そういう時期は誰にでもある。
It goes through a phase, what, of talking to themselves. It's the memories.
本人の前ではもう。はあ？何それどういうこと？
何しに来たんですか？出ろ。10日分の罰なら今ハンジが与えた。
クレ相当には掛け合ってるから安心してよ。鎧と超大型を地に伏せた英雄を牢に入れていてはそれこそ示しがつきませんってね。
少し痩せたか。飯は十分食えたのに。
エレンは元気そう。
まあな。
行くぞ。身支度を
Was she too busy worrying about
何をする
Eren?
んです？
謁見だ。女王陛下がトロスト区に起こした。
Historia! I wonder if we get to see the letter from Ymir then. Do we know?
親愛なるヒストリアへ。
We do.
今私の隣にはライナーがいる。
Oh, please don't tell me she's
私が恋
dead.
文をしたためる様子を覗き見している。
悪趣味な野郎だ。絶対にモテる。
I miss her so much.
お前にこの手紙を届けると約束してくれた。まさか私がお前よりこいつらを選んでしまうなんて。私はこれから死ぬ。でも後悔はしてない。そう言いたいところだが、正直心の
Why do I
中で
feel like she's not dead
まだお前
though?
と結婚できてないことだ。ユミルより。
I don't think she's dead. Until we see her actually die, I don't believe it. I said the same thing with Hanji.
その道は全て一つの座標で交わる。つまりそれが始祖の巨人だ。
何今の。
She's imprisoned, but I don't think she's dead. She didn't see Emir die, so I think she's being interrogated by the Malian government.
バカだな、ユミルって。バカだったんだ。照れくさくなるとすぐごまかす。これじゃわかんないよ。
She's also not speaking of her as if she's dead, so I think even she realizes. She looks so much older now.
陛下。
I think it's the hairstyle.
やめてよ。まだ公の席じゃないんだから。
Sasha, she's recovering. She's getting
ギ
well.
リシャ・イエーガー氏の半生、巨人と知り得る歴史のすべて、壁外世界の情報。
So these books that Grisha wrote, I feel as if Armin expands upon them because it says the information that we know so far. So I don't think this is just Grisha's knowledge, but Armin's as well. I feel like maybe Armin takes up the mantle now that Grisha no longer can and expands upon the history of the world and of the walls itself. Because this is history of outside of the walls. So what if Armin decides that he is going to write a history of what they know within the walls?
我々調査兵団はエルヴィン・スミスを含め多数の英雄を失うことと引き換えにウォール・マリアを奪還し超大型巨人の力を奪うことに成功しました。ですが我々壁内人類は未だ極めて危険な状態にあります。
War is coming.
敵が巨人という化け物だけであればどんなに良かったことでしょうか。しかし我々が相手にしていた敵の正体は人であり文明であり、言うなれば
I said this back in series 2. Humanity is the
式
enemy.
によれば我々は巨人になれる特殊な人種ユミルの民であり、再び世界を支配する可能性がある。だから世
Which is
界
why
は
they're
我
being
々ユミルの
targeted.
民をこの世から根絶するのだと。
始祖の巨人がマーレの手に落ちれば、エルディア人は終わりだ。
そんなこと壁の王が許すわけない。
Mhm.
壁の王は戦わない。エルディアが再び罪を犯すというのなら、我々は滅ぶべくして滅ぶ。我は始祖の巨人と不戦のちぎりを交
To
わした。
protect those within the
壁
walls.
の王は大陸の王家にそう言い残し、壁の門を閉ざした。
壁の巨人が世界を平らにならすとも言い
If
残したのでは
pushed.
ないのか。
その言葉が抑止力になる間に、束の間の平和を享受するらしい。
But now the Malian government don't care because of the vital resources.
もはや民を守らぬ王は王ではない。必ず見つけ出して、臆した王から始祖の巨人を取り上げろ。それが俺たちの使命だ。
To wage war.
イエーガー氏はその後使命を果たし、始祖の巨人は息子エレンに託されました。だがその者が始祖の巨人を宿しても壁の王の思想にとらわれ、残される選択肢は自死の道のみとなる。おそらくそれが不戦のちぎり。
But Eren's not of the royal
しか
bloodline.
しながら過去にエレンは無垢の巨人を操り、窮地を
But I
逃
think
れ
he's
たこと
of
があります。
Emir's bloodline. That there's a
王家の血を
stronger
引く者で
connection
は
to
ないエレン
Emir
にもその力を使える可能性がある
than
のかも
just
し
the
れませ
regular
ん。
subjects of Emir. There has to be something special about his
あの
bloodline
時は一瞬だけ
that allows him to
全て
control the
繋がった気がした
abilities. Maybe he was hand chosen by
あの一
Emir
瞬だけ
2,000 years ago.
私はダイナ・フリッツと申します。王家の血を引く者です。
まさか
Poor Eren. memories of the past are beginning to blend with the present. It's really hard for him to kind of decipher what's going on. Psychologically speaking, that must be very strenuous for Eren, honestly.
ああ、なるほど。そっか。
Your face that Levi
なん
said
で
you were
も
going
彼
through.
は今そういう時期にあるようでして、突然格好をつけたり叫んだりしてしまうようです。
ああ、そうか。それは気の毒に。年頃だし。
Oh my god.
あのこと
It's that age.
二人にも話していない。母さんとハンネスさんを殺したあの巨人が父親が前に結婚してた相手だったなんて。王家の血を引く者を巨人にして俺が接触すれば始祖の巨人の力を扱えるかもしれない。
Wait, what do you say? If someone with royal blood is made into a titan that I touch, it might be possible for me to use the founding titan. Is he on about when he punched Dina's hand? That somehow there was a transferal? Like, the founding titan within his body recognized Dina's blood when he connected and made contact, and that was why he was able to use the ability. So it may then have nothing to do with his bloodline being special or being chosen by Ymir, but that if he touches someone of the royal bloodline, he might gain momentarily the strength to use the full powers.
壁の中に入ったら初体を持つんだ。
何を言ってる。俺にはダイナがいる。
Dina's gone.
それにそんなことを言われても巨人になる直前の記憶はなくなるんだろう。
壁の中で人を愛せ。それができなければ繰り返すだけだ。同じ歴史を、同じ過ちを何度も。ミカサやアルミン、みんなを救いたいなら使命を全うしろ。
ミカサ？アルミン？誰のことだ？
I'm sorry. Huh? Is he not speaking to Grisha? Maybe he's speaking to Eren, but he's transmitting that memory to Grisha, which then gets passed on to Eren, which is why he's encouraging him to have a family, because Eren's already been specifically chosen for this.
さあ、わからない。誰の記憶だろう。
What? Okay. I think Eren's been personally selected by Ymir 2,000 years ago, and she's transmitting those memories down the pathways because Eren will be the last to have the founding titan ability. This is crazy. This is also crazy, okay? That essentially memories can be transcended across time and space. And I kind of had an indication. I put that on my 3x12 timeline that there was something weird about the series 1 title To You in 2000 Years that made it seem like there was some weird transmission of memories going on. And now that there was the mention of Mikasa and Armin, we know that the founding titan is omniscient because Uri was omniscient because he said in humanity's fading twilight. It was as if he knew that this was all going to happen. But because of the First King's refusal to participate in a war and his willingness to allow Aldia to just be erased should the Malian government incite that war again, indicates that maybe Ymir was also omniscient and knew who was going to inevitably inherit her abilities, and maybe she has hand selected Eren herself to enact his inevitable revenge or desire for revenge. Maybe that's her way of pushing him into what's about to happen. If that is the case, then the memories of Mikasa and Armin have been transmitted this whole time, because that's what drives Eren, is protecting those he cares about most. And if that means eradicating an entire population of people to do so, then he will. Mikasa and Armin probably won't agree with Eren on that, but that has always been his driving force. And Grisha said the same thing before he injected Eren. Back in series 1, if you want to protect Mikasa and Armin, then you have to do this. So it's almost as if he's been chosen, he's been hand selected, and really has had no control over whether he wanted to be the one to do this, because Grisha's been told to go on and have a family. He's been encouraged to do so to prevent the replication of history. History's already fucking replicated because he's done the exact same thing with his son that he's done with Zeke. But then maybe what they mean is that the founding titan always knew that this son that Grisha would have with Carla would be the one to bring it all to an end. And whether that's because he goes on a rampage or whether he unites them somehow, I don't believe that Eren's going to be the one to unify humanity. I think he's very much going to be the one to push humanity to the brink because he is hell-bent on revenge. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. But this whole idea of the coordinate sending messages down has to be in relation to why Eren was selected. Because Eren is serving a purpose. Even 2,000 years ago, they knew Eren was going to serve a purpose. And that could be because he's the last one to ever have this ability, or because he has the drive and the goal to enact what they've always wanted to achieve, which is the destruction of the Malian continent. I guess we'll see how that plays out in Series 4. We still have another episode to go before Series 3 is over. I don't think Ymir is dead because when Historia touched the paper and she had that spark, she was able to kind of see Ymir's childhood, but also where Ymir is now. And if Ymir had died, I think she would have seen that Ymir had died. She was also talking about Ymir in the present tense, not in the past tense, which to me symbolizes the fact that Ymir is still alive. Ymir is most likely being interrogated by the Malian government. Because why wouldn't she be? She's lived within the walls for God knows how many years now. She knows too much to just kill her. They'll kill her when they no longer have use of her because they'll want to give her abilities to someone that they can manipulate and brainwash into serving their purpose. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Poor Eren is going through psychological turmoil because he's no longer able to kind of distinguish between the past and the present. Like everything is overlapping and intertwining. And again, it was really good to kind of see the familial similarities and how Grisha and Eren are both driven to pursue their inevitable goal in the hope that life can be better than what it is now, that they are driven to succeed their inevitable goals. Grisha's is to destroy the Malian government and to pay for his sin, which resulted in his sister dying, but also Dina being transformed into a Titan, and for the suffering and pain that he has caused from his ambitions. But his inevitable goal is to kill those that have forced him inevitably to go down this path. Likewise, we're going to see Eren replicate that same cycle. Eren is going to want to enact revenge on those who have caused him pain and suffering and also resulted in the death of his mother, because it's the Malian government that is to blame for the death of his mother, and it is the Malian government that is to blame for him being born within the walls and feeling trapped as if he has no freedom and he is just nothing more than a caged animal. It's going to be super, super interesting to see how this plays out in Series 4. Eren only has 8 more years, and I did kind of suspect once we saw the blood and everything and how weak Eren was from using the abilities that it could take a toll on the body, that they may not live as long. Not only is it more tragic that the Malian government are coercing Aldean children to become Titans, they're doing so condemning them to never living old enough to be adults, essentially. Like, they will die in their early 20s. They will never live long enough to live a successful life. But I guess part of that is they're sacrificing their lives to ensure that their families can be well taken care of and be prosperous in the long run. But obviously Eren never knew. So Eren's kind of had this thrusted onto him, and he's only got 8 more years left, even though Mikasa's adamant that that's not true. Armin still has 13, but it's just really sad knowing that they're both going to die relatively young. The parallels between Grisha and Eren of the walls, both are seeking to escape, both are seeking freedom, both are seeking something more than what life has given to them. So again, because we don't see a lot of interaction between Grisha and Eren, because Grisha dies relatively early in, it's nice to see the connection between father and son, but also the way in which Eren is replicating his father's past. He's replicating what his father has gone through. He's, in a sense, mirroring almost the same experiences, the same struggles that his father has undergone. And we're seeing that with the way that Grisha is almost a fetus until reminded of his inevitable pursuit of making the Malian government pay for all the lives that have been lost, but also to pay for his own sin that have contributed to the loss of life. In the same way that Eren is motivated and driven by there being something more than life within the walls, and by extension, gaining revenge for the death of his mother and for the suffering of those within the walls at the hands of the Malian government. We're seeing, in a sense, transgenerational trauma, because what the father is experiencing, the son is also experiencing and replicating. So cycles are not being broken. And I know the owl says to prevent cycles from being repeated, to go on and have children, but cycles are being repeated. But whether that's by choice or fate, we are yet to know. I'm leaning more towards fate, because it's almost as if Eren has been selected for this purpose. And in a way, you almost have to wonder if Eren ever really had a choice, and if Grisha ever really had a choice, because if her inevitable goal has always been for Eren to have these abilities, hence the transmission of memories down the line, down the pathways to him, then has everything been part of Ymir's greater design and is fated to happen rather than circumstantial. And it seems almost as if this was chosen. She is intended for things to work out this way. So again, you almost have to wonder how much is choice and how much is fate. And I think this is fated to happen. I don't think Eren ever had a chance. I think this was always going to be something that was thrust upon him. And him saying, I never should have been born, is making me think that, again, that this could all have been played out or designed 2,000 years ago for the sole purpose of making sure that Eren was born. So it must be, in simplistic terms, as simplistic as I can make him, is that Ymir has transcended the memories down through her position as the coordinate to the Attack Titan, who has then designed it that Grisha takes the Attack Titan abilities to then take the Founding Titan to then pass that on to Eren, because that's what Ymir planned and organized 2,000 years ago. The design was always for Eren to have the Founding Titan abilities. But in order to get there, another Titan had to be used in the process. So that's why the Attack Titan has those memories to pass on to Grisha, that Ymir is making sure that Grisha is pushed in that direction and is being told to have children and to start a family, because her inevitable design has always been for Eren to be born. And if you think about it, Eren should never have been born, because Grisha should have technically been turned into a pure Titan and pushed off of that wall. It's only because of the intervention of the owl, aka the Attack Titan, that he was able to go and live within the walls. So it's almost like everything's being puppeteered 2,000 years ago by Ymir to make sure that Eren was born, to make sure that Eren somehow gained the Founding Titan abilities. But in doing so, they had to put Grisha in the walls, and Grisha had to have the Attack Titan in order to gain the Founding Titan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stood a chance against Frida. So none of this is choice. This is all fated to happen, essentially. Or at least that's what I think. It's like every time I think I know what's happening, other things get thrown in, and I'm like, I'm confused and I'm lost. But again, nice to see the family resemblance, nice to see the connection that both father and son have. It's just interesting to see that both father and son fight for the sake of freedom, that they're both driven by this urge to be free, to escape what plagues them. For Grisha, it is to be free of the Malian government and for his people to no longer have to suffer being seen as vermin because of the weight of history. And for Eren, it is to be free of the wars, to be free of that control and the threats from outside, which is also the Malian government. So it's just interesting to see how both of their focus on freedom again comes back to the Malian government. I think that's all I have to say for now, because there was a lot. Things will probably come to me at a later point. But as of right now, I think that's all I have to say. It's a been a long enough episode as it is. If you enjoyed this react, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment below to help boost this video into the algorithm. And until next time, bye!